When I started, I never wanted to be a YouTuber.
Tech with Tim, a seasonal programmer, is best known for his YouTube channel with 1.5 million coding enthusiasts.
His tutorials totaling 100 million plus views have made him a topic choice for aspiring developers.
Tim's time at Microsoft and Algo Expert honed his expertise, and he now leads a team of engineers as a senior software developer. Originally from Canada's East Coast, but interestingly, he has just moved to Dubai.
How did you grow in such a niche topic?
I need to have a bit more of a strategy here if I actually want to grow the channel into a business. So I made some tutorials, and now that video that I made 5-6 years ago has 1 million views, right, on how to learn iGame program.
When you started the YouTube channel and then you got an internship offer at Microsoft, and now I think you're on almost 7 figures in sponsorships alone.
For the first 2 years of doing YouTube, I didn't make a single dollar from the channel. I'd get a bunch of search results like Tech with Tim Python, Tech with Tim JavaScript, Tech with Tim this, where people would specifically want to come to me to learn a topic. Don't rush to do sponsorships, especially when you're just starting.
The 5 or 10 most viewed videos on your channel that make up such a massive amount of your subscriber count.
How authentic you are to the audience, how much people trust you, how often people are even going to click on your video. And then it just started to get crazier and crazy and crazy as the channel got bigger, more people reach out.
It always surprised me how many content creators are not making money from sponsorships and leaving so much money on the table. So join this episode with Tim as we show you how to add an additional revenue stream through sponsorship deals.
This is the Playstack podcast, where we talk about everything YouTube growth.
Awesome, Tim. Thank you so much for joining us today. We obviously know each other already from a bit earlier when you actually visited Vietnam. I missed you, fortunately, but you had a good chat with Mike. But you're familiar in our mastermind and everything. So we are very familiar, but most of the people that are listening to the podcast aren't. So could you run down quickly who you are and what you do?
Sure. So yeah, I'm Tim. My online name is Tech with Tim. I'm a programmer, been doing it for a long time, and I teach software development online. So my whole YouTube channel is technical tutorials for Python programming or JavaScript or a bunch of things that most of you probably have no idea about. And then I have some online courses, kind of bootcamp style stuff where I do. I've been doing this for a long time. YouTube, probably about 6-7 years now, more seriously about 4. And yeah, that's about me. I travel around and make videos. I do a lot of coding stuff.
So can you give us a recap of your journey? Because I know briefly when you started the YouTube channel and then you got an internship offer at Microsoft, and now I think you're on almost 7 figures in sponsorships alone. So can you kind of walk us through that journey from the first kind of day that you decided to start the YouTube channel to today, where you are now?
Sure, yeah. So it's an interesting journey because when I started, I never wanted to be a YouTuber. Maybe a lot of other people, I never was oh, I want to be famous. I was just a nerd, to be honest. I was kind of posting videos as a hobby. But to bring it all the way back, I started learning how to code back when I was about 12 years old. Might sound crazy to some people, but for me, I was always just super curious about things. I was always interested in how does that work? How does this thing work? And as soon as I started getting my hands on computers, I was always trying to hack the school Wi-Fi, all that kind of stuff. So I ended up just naturally learning how to code. Now, after doing that for a few years, I ended up working at a summer camp. And while I was at the summer camp, this is when I was about 16, the director of the camp knew that I was kind of into tech and I was learning programming and stuff. So he asked me if I wanted to run the STEM division of the camp, so science, technology, engineering, math. So of course I said yes. And then as a part of that, I kind of developed a little coding course that was going to be one of the programs for half a day that we teach for a week to some young kids. So as a part of that, I made a whole series on YouTube that was Python programming for beginners. It was just 20 really bad videos, to be honest, that the kids could watch at home. And then random people started finding those videos. I started getting a few thousand views. I got some really positive comments. So I was okay, this is kind of cool. I'll post some more videos. So throughout the rest of high school from 16 to 18, I just randomly posted YouTube videos. By the time I graduated high school, I had maybe 700,000 views, 100 videos, maybe 1,000 subscribers. Right when the YouTube monetization rules actually got added back then. So I was pushing really hard to try to hit those metrics. And then after that, I went into university for computer science, started to realize, hey, this could actually be a business. This could start to make money. I was getting some more traction. I started growing the subscribers. And I went really, really hard on it for the first year of university, grew the channel up to about 20,000 subscribers. And from there, kind of the rest is history. I just took it a lot more serious, was doing it pretty much more than all my schoolwork. And then eventually it led to the point where that actually landed me an internship at Microsoft. That was when I was 19. Did that internship when I was 20 in the summer of COVID. Channel exploded because everyone was learning how to code. And then I just dropped out of school and took it from there. So
with the journey you've been through and the conversations we've been having, like, I thought you were way further ahead in your like life already, and then it's like you're just like straight out of college, basically running this stuff, and you're almost 7 figures in sponsorships. It's like it's mind blowing, and it's like so cool that it's an opportunity. Now you say like 10 years of experience in coding, and that makes more sense then because you've been starting so early. So yeah, I guess that's very helpful. One of the things that you did for us was you did like a workshop on sponsorships and how to get them and what to look out for. I want to dig a little bit deeper into it. But before that, I want to, like, obviously sponsorships come from having traffic, right? Like you need good source of traffic for sponsorship people to come to you and wanting to pay you. How did you grow in such a niche topic, like such a quote unquote boring topic? How were you able to like scale your channel and make it interesting enough for people to subscribe and view over and over and over?
Yeah, that's a good question. And to be honest, like, remember that when I started the YouTube channel, like, I didn't have a strategy. This is also when YouTube was, it was still big, but it was somewhat new, and not everyone was like getting into making videos. Right now, like, everyone and their mom is an influencer. Everyone knows about TikTok. Like, this was before short form content. This was before like so much content was even on the internet. So to be honest with you, I do have to credit a little bit of it to like really good timing, just because coincidentally, when I started posting videos, like, there wasn't many tech YouTubers. There weren't that many people teaching programming online. If you wanted to learn something, some people were doing it online, but it was still very traditional, go to university. So to answer your question though, when I started, it was just a bunch of random videos, and I just took feedback from the like 10, 20, 30 people that were watching me and just made videos that they wanted to see. And I just kept kind of nurturing that core audience. And to be honest with you, for the first like 2 years of doing YouTube, I didn't make a single dollar from the channel. It was never a goal to even make any money from the channel. I never thought of it as a business. I looked at it as, this is like my resume, and this is something that can help me get a job with. And then by the time I was at maybe about 150 videos and I was starting to get like 100 plus views a video, I started to realize, okay, I need to like have a bit more of a strategy here if I actually want to grow the channel, if I want to turn this into a business. So I started pretty much figuring out everything that I had learned on my programming journey that was really, really hard for me or annoying to learn. And I just started teaching that online. So I just went, what would I have wanted to watch online? What would have been the easiest way for me to pick up this skill? And then I just started teaching it. And fortunately, I was a pretty good teacher. I was kind of natural at this, and I've been practicing it a lot. So a lot of people resonated with that style of content. And from that point forward, I'd get a bunch of search results like Tech with Tim Python, Tech with Tim JavaScript, Tech with Tim this, right? People would specifically want to come to me to learn a topic. So I just started finding like, what are all these little areas that I had to learn in school that were really challenging for me that haven't already been posted on YouTube? And I started posting those. To give you a concrete example, like there's this little module in Python called Pygame. You don't have to know what it is, but it lets you make like stupid little games that are never going to be production ready, but it's used in a lot of schools, like to teach programming. And there was like no tutorials on this online. So I made some tutorials, and now that video that I made 5-6 years ago has like 1 million views, right? On how to learn a game program. So I did that for the first maybe 2 or 3 years of the channel. And that's what really got me up to probably about 10, 20,000 subscribers. And then, like you said, once I started to get traction, then I could start to make more videos that I knew would immediately get a few thousand views and have a chance to go viral with more of my face, more of my personality, more tips and advice, as opposed to pure searchable SEO educational content, right?
Yeah, I see especially as an editor, I have like these very little problems here and there, and then you go and search for it on YouTube, and then you ask yourself like, why, like, oh, there's no tutorial, and then it's like, why is there no tutorial on it? And then I'm like, oh, maybe I should make a tutorial on it. But it feels like risky for such a small problem to make a video on it. So what was your thinking around that? Because it's like, okay, if nobody makes a tutorial on this, is it like worth it? Like, were you conscious about the fact that you were early and like a pioneer in that niche, or how did that go for you?
So I think to some extent, yes, like I was aware of the fact that there wasn't that many guys doing this. I mean, even fast forward now, right? Like last year or two, so many coding channels have popped up. There's guys that have been around 1 year that have blown past me and just did a new format that really, really took off. But back then it was really just about, I just want to like help as many people as possible. And if this video can help one single person, that's one person who's subscribed to my channel, who will maybe purchase something in the future, who is going to be a loyal audience member because I've solved this bug that no one else went out of their way to help this guy with. And that was kind of the main mission. Like when I started consciously, like I did genuinely just want to provide free education to people. And it was really impactful, especially when you're just getting started and no one really knows who you are. And some random kid from Africa comments on your video and says, hey, like I was able to change my life and get a programming job because I've been watching your videos. So that's something that I always, still to this day, has stuck with me. And when I was making those videos, I also knew like I'm the only one posting it. Even if a small amount of people have this problem, all of them are going to have to watch this. And as programming gets bigger and bigger, more people are going to encounter that problem. That's what a lot of my videos ended up doing, where when I posted them, they got no views at all. They didn't perform. But now they're the only thing that exists. They get a bunch of views, and now they're just the de facto go-to video to watch, even if they're 4 or 5 years old.
It's interesting that how you started your YouTube channel is very similar to how I started my YouTube channel, right? So for you, it was kind of like a side project while you was at high school. And for me, it was kind of a side project while I was at university. And I also didn't think that it would take off. I also didn't think that it would turn into a business. It was just like, oh, I think I can probably try and make some videos and help other people. And I did it, and it didn't take too long before the channel started to grow and I started to monetize. But similar to you also, I have those, like the videos from the very beginning, because they're evergreen, like 6-7 years ago. Some of them have got 3, 4, 5, 6 million views because they're evergreen. And it's those videos, like the 5 or 10 most viewed videos on your channel, that make up such a massive amount of your subscriber count. I know one of my videos has got, just from that one video, has got me 100,000 subscribers, and I've got 1.1 million subscribers. So that's almost 10% from one video. So you kind of gone through how you kind of started your channel from the beginning. What about sponsorships? Do you remember the first time that you landed your first sponsorship? Because I feel like a lot of creators have that problem where they don't know where to go, and then if they do find a potential brand, they don't really know how to price, what to charge, and then they don't necessarily know how to go ahead and do a sponsorship. So I'm wondering if you kind of went through that same process as well, the first sponsorship that you took.
Oh yeah, I mean 100%. Like back in the day, this is when influencer marketing also wasn't like a huge thing. Like now, it's probably a bit easier to find that information or find some course. So there's someone talking about it on YouTube probably. But back then, sponsorships, like a lot of people didn't even know YouTubers did sponsorships. Like they didn't even understand. I remember telling my parents when I made my first $100 or whatever, and I'll get into that story, and they're like, "What are you talking about? Someone's like paying you to talk about something on a YouTube." Even though that was only 6-7 years ago, that still was so new, and it's crazy to think how far it's come. But I remember that the way that I've gotten pretty much all my sponsorship deals has been inbound traffic. So I just have like my business email attached to my YouTube account. I've pretty much never like reached out to a brand and said, hey, like I want to work with you, let's do a sponsorship. What ended up happening was people would just reach out to my channel. They saw that I was fairly niche and I was one of the only people doing this kind of like technical coding stuff, and maybe accepting sponsorships at that time or open for it. And they'd say, hey, we have this thing. Can you promote it? It will pay you X amount of dollars. So at first, like I didn't even negotiate. It was like, oh, I'll pay you $100. Mention this thing in your video. Okay, sure. And now I got to figure out, okay, how am I going to mention this? How does this work? And the first few ones I did, everyone on my channel is kind of like, congrats, that's awesome. You got a sponsorship, but also a bit confused. Like, what is this random like product that you're telling us about, right? So it started with purely trial and error. I didn't even know you were like supposed to negotiate. I didn't know there was like agents and contracts. And it was like, hey, I'm going to PayPal you $100 or $200. Like throw this link in the description or do this thing. And after doing a few of them, you kind of just get how they work. You understand which ones are going to be really annoying to do and which ones are going to be easy. And then you start to kind of reach out and you see other YouTubers. So for me, like it wasn't until I saw some other people on YouTube or I'd seen YouTube videos or heard other people talking about sponsorships, I was like, oh, I could probably get paid like double or triple what I'm charging right now. Let me throw out $300 or $400 for a sponsorship, right? And that's what I would do. But honestly, at the beginning of my channel, probably up until about 200 videos, I didn't do a single sponsorship. The focus was not money at all. I had some random like affiliate links here and there that made a little bit of money. But I was purely making money on AdSense, which back then was like I'm making $700 a month or $800 a month. So starting out, didn't even like consider that as a revenue avenue. And then it just started to get crazy and crazy and crazy as the channel got bigger, more people reach out. We could talk about that later too.
Now that you have a lot more experience around it, like how would you advise new creators or people are trying to attract sponsorships, like how to actually get started on that?
Yeah, I think the first thing I would say now is like, don't rush to do sponsorships, especially when you're just starting. Fortunately for me, it wasn't something that really hindered my growth or affected me too much because I did do it pretty late. But I see so many creators, they maybe hit 5K, 10K subs or something. Their channel has some size, like they're proud of the size they've got it to. And like, I need to start monetizing, I need to start making money. The truth is those sponsorships you get at the very beginning are usually going to be pretty bad. They're going to pay pretty poorly. Like even if it's $1,000, right? It seems like a lot of money in the short term when you're not making any money from YouTube or you're making like $20 a month on AdSense. But you can really tarnish your reputation super easily, especially when you don't know like what you're doing and it's the first few companies and you're just excited and you're just seeing the dollar figure. And you have to realize that later down the line, you're going to be doing sponsorships that could be worth 100 times more than that, right? And one deal you get 2, 3, 4, 6, 1 year later can completely blow all of the other deals out of the water if you do it correctly. So my first advice would be build like a solid, loyal audience, be authentic, and prove to people, like give them as much value as you possibly can before you start trying to cash in on it and just take, $500, $1,000, right? It's almost like you're reinvesting in your business by not doing the sponsorships really early on. And then you can really do the ones that make sense with better, more reputable companies later down. Once you get bigger, then I think you have to be a bit methodical about who you work with and be a bit selective. I know for me, like I worked with some probably like sketchy companies that don't even exist today, where some of the links that I have, like they go to 404 pages, they're gone, right? And that was in retrospect probably a mistake. And if I'd worked with the wrong company, look at like an FTX example, right? Who knows what could happen to my channel or my reputation, right?
So do you work with do you have an agency now that finds you sponsorships, or do you have a manager, or how does that work?
Yeah, so I have a agent or like kind of like a team of agents. I work with a big company. I can say the name, it's fine. It's called Viral Nation. It's like one of the largest influencer marketing companies in North America, and they have like thousands of employees. So I have like a dedicated team of about 2 people that just manage my sponsorship. And most of what they do is handle all the inbound traffic. So like I get a bunch of emails constantly, like every day. Hey, we want to work with you or this company, blah, blah, blah. They pretty much filter through all of them. And they try to find companies that have a budget that's worth working with and that are going to align with my channel and make sense to advertise. And then they'll negotiate deals on my behalf. And obviously, before we do any deal, I'm going to review it. I'm going to have approval. But they deal with all the contracts. They deal with all the negotiation. And it only ever comes to me when it's at the point where that company is ready to sign some kind of deal. In terms of getting me sponsorships, I have the demand is so much higher than the supply. So I don't need to like go out there and like beg companies to sponsor my videos, right? At any point in time, I can sign the sponsorship contracts. So it's just about picking the best ones. And typically when people are coming to you, you have a bit more leverage, right? Than if you're going to go to them. But this company also works with brands. So they kind of double end some of the deals where like a big brand will come to them and say, hey, we have a budget of $500,000 and we need to do influencer marketing this quarter. And then because I'm kind of on the roster of influencers in the tech space there, I might get an allocation of that where my agent is working with the agent representing the brand internally in that company.
I know Mike does it similarly, but just through a freelance brand manager.
Yeah,
And,
I mean, I've kind of experienced like a few different types of agents, I guess. So I used to work with an agency probably for the first 2, 3, because I also didn't take sponsorships for the first maybe like 3, 4 years of the channel, because I just wasn't aware that people would actually pay me to put 60 to talk about a product for 60 seconds in my video. weirdly, my first ever sponsorships were community posts. So someone would pay me, or a company would pay me like $35 for a community post, and that for me at the time was like decent money, because I could sell like 10 of them in a package and make $350, which is a nice little bonus back then. But then it wasn't until I started working with an agency that I was realizing. And at first, I was a little bit cautious. I was like, well, if I'm talking about a product for 60 seconds, what's going to happen to my audience retention? Like, are my audience going to get mad? But then I'm looking at other channels, and it's like, well, it's not affecting, like, other channels that are taking on sponsorships. It's not affecting them. But I think YouTube's audience is so kind of used to it, and they kind of expect pretty much most big YouTubers to have at least a 60-second integration in their videos. And then it's kind of our job to make sure that the sponsorship is relevant to the actual video, and also try, if possible, to provide value even throughout that 60 seconds. And Mr.Beast, he does a really good job of this, in terms of he kind of gives an open loop just before the sponsorship, like the 60-second sponsorship. So he'll tell you something, but he won't tell you all of it, if that makes sense, like a cliffhanger. And then he'll go through the sponsorship. And then after the sponsorship, there's the payoff of finding out the answer, kind of thing. I think that's a really, really smart way of doing it, I think.
Yeah, he kills it with the sponsorships. Like, I find myself wanting to watch them just even to like study how he's doing it.
Yeah.
One, because like I like it, his videos are obviously engaging, entertaining, but also like as a YouTuber myself, I'm like, okay, I should learn from this, and like how he's doing this. Like, if I could do that in my videos, how much more effective would those be? But I think it's a little bit different in like, a tech niche tutorial type video than a crazy zoom edit all over the place Mr.Beast video.
For sure. And I think it's going to be interesting when YouTube launch this. They're creating a sponsorship platform. So essentially, and I don't know why they've not done this sooner. And it's not been rolled out fully yet, but we'll see how it works later on this year. But I think that's kind of a no-brainer on YouTube's side, because there's so much money being made, and YouTube aren't getting a cut of any of that. Like, when I make a deal with my brand manager with another company, YouTube don't see any of that money. So it makes sense that YouTube have like an inbuilt platform where they essentially just connect the creator with the brand, and it's a lot more efficient process. Because you'll be able to see or at least in theory, I don't know how their software works yet, but you'd be able to see the analytics, like the brand would be able to see the analytics of the YouTube channel and be able to make more efficient decisions, I guess.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting when they roll that out. I think the analytics is huge, because I literally have brands ask me, like, take a screenshot and like send it to me, which is super inefficient. But I'm just curious how it's going to work, because I find a lot of the sponsorships I end up doing, especially on bigger deals, are a bit more intricate. And even if there was a platform, like, I would still have to hop on a call with them, or I would still have to take something offline. So if I'm still needing someone to help me manage it, I'm still doing a bunch of stuff off this platform, do I want to pay YouTube a 5 or 10% cut when instead I could just pay an agent that, right? So I think it's going to be interesting how they set that up. I'm curious to see. So I think for smaller creators, it's going to be super effective, where like they don't have a team and they can just do a massive amount of like really small deals. But I think for the bigger creators that already have existing relationships, agents, teams, etc., maybe it'll be used, but I don't see it being like crazy valuable for me.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
I'm exactly the same position. I think for smaller creators that don't really know what they're doing, or have not got their foot in the door when it comes to sponsorship, it's going to be amazing for them, especially if there's like tutorials and step-by-step guides on exactly what they need to do. Yeah. And it'll be also really good for the brands as well, because they have more content creators to choose from. I think, like you say, Tim, it will be the already established channels that already have like agents working for them. I think we won't benefit as much as the smaller content creators and the brands.
How do you now like determine your rates for sponsorships? Like, obviously you want your best rates, but and you mentioned they want to see your analytics. But for you, how does that work exactly?
Yeah, I'll be like a bit careful with how I say it. Honestly, it's definitely not like a science. Like, there's no like crazy formula I go punch in and it like spits out some number. Like, it depends on so many different factors. And we did this presentation with you guys, and I remember when I went through it, there was like 25 or something different factors that could influence what a rate would be. I would say, first of all, for me, it's like existing relationship and ease of deal. If I have an existing relationship with a company, if I know that they're going to be good to work with, obviously I want to give them a preferential rate. I want them to feel like they want to continue working with me as opposed to another random creator, especially if they have a limited budget. And when I know that the approval process is going to be smooth, they're going to answer quickly, they're going to pay on time, it's just a lot easier for me to work with them, right? So my rate could go down 20, 30% just because I really want to lock in that deal, and same on their side, right? So that's the first thing that would influence it. Next thing is like complexity. So in my case, a lot of the deals I do actually aren't purely just like traffic or eyeballs. Obviously that's a part of it, but a lot of what I have to do on my side is like, I might have to learn a new technology. I might have to go in and like learn a new platform if I'm going to do a dedicated video tutorial. Yesterday I was just working on like doing this advanced deployment of a Python application I'm working on with this new company. I mean, that could be 8-10 hours of my day, right? Just learning this whole thing to be able to really effectively make a video. So in that case, I have to charge significantly more, even if it's not going to be justified with, getting 1 million views or something on the video, because you're utilizing my expertise. And I'm one of the only people that has an audience who's also even capable of learning this and teaching this technology. So that's actually a lot of what goes into my rate for more complex deals. It's like, you're really paying for the fact that I am like an expert level developer and that I have the audience. So it's kind of a hybrid of both. Whereas if it's like just a 60-second insert, easy, and so it's like clip together like a short little insert, then it's usually just a flat rate that we charge for that, and we'll adjust it slightly. So I just kind of have a rate and we experiment with it. So every January we'll up it a little bit. We'll see how existing companies respond to it. And it's really just doing like market research with all the inbound that we get. We get so much inbound that we can test on all these companies what rate is going to be the most effective by throwing out different rates, different size of companies. And even though there's no crazy math formula, we can kind of eyeball it and say, okay, as soon as we go to this number, like we're not getting any replies back. At this number, we're open for negotiation. At this number, they say yes no matter what, right? And then we adjust in between those and just try to keep pushing it up to the most reasonable amount that someone could say yes to, right? Because you never know. I think that was the thing I talked about in the presentation too. You might throw in a number like, okay, for an insert, it's going to be $30,000 or some insane amount that is not justified by any math. And some company might just say yes. And you don't know why they're saying yes. It could be end of quarter. They have some budget they need to use. It's just crazy. Like, it's the Wild West of sponsorship. So you kind of have to be adapting constantly, I feel like.
It is the Wild West. And I think that's why YouTube coming out with the sponsorship platform will actually help. Will be a kind of a net positive, because brands don't really know how much to charge. Creators don't really know how much to charge.
I know Mike wants to get into the debate, but one thing that stood out most for me when you did that presentation for us is like how, and you touched upon it, like how you need to be careful with who you take, when you take it. But the way you said it is like you pay with goodwill. Can you cover that again? Because I think that's one of the most important things. Like, I started a channel, was it last year? And we were kind of chasing sponsorship deals because we were like, okay, this is not 100% what interests me, but if I make some money off of this, maybe I can keep going on this. And then we had some offers on certain, not offers, but maybe like within a certain product niche. I think it was even alcohol. And I was like, I don't really feel comfortable promoting alcohol on a personal development channel. Although the idea might be good, or the story might be great, and then it's like that feeling is like, why doesn't it resonate with me to do that? And that's the goodwill, right? Like, it doesn't make sense. So can you go deeper on that for a second?
Yeah. So just like business 101, like part of the value of any business, and as a creator, like you have to treat yourself as a business if you want to be successful, is goodwill. Like, it's literally written as a line item in accounting, especially if you're going to like sell a company, right? So you have goodwill, and that goodwill is like how authentic you are to the audience, how much people trust you, how often people are even going to click on your videos. Like, there's some creators we've seen who have no goodwill now because they just promote whatever at any point in time. No one trusts them. Their word means nothing. And then we have the complete opposite, where there's people like they could say anything and you'll have an army of people lining up and defending them no matter what. And that difference is goodwill. So what I was saying in the presentation is that anytime you do a sponsorship deal, what you're doing is you're pretty much passing in part of your goodwill for a certain amount of money. Now, even if it's a very, very small portion of that, anytime you advertise something that you don't truly back, you don't truly believe in, that you're doing purely for a monetary perspective or even a hybrid, you're always trading a little bit of goodwill, and you're always going to have someone who dislikes that or is upset about it. They might not comment on your video. It might be one person out of the 100,000, but there's always going to be someone who has a little bit of a bad taste in their mouth when they see a. And I've experienced this. I'm sure Mike has experienced it. Everyone's probably done a bad sponsorship in their lifetime, and mistakes happen. But when you do that, you will lose audience members forever that it could have taken you years and years to gain. So Hormozi talks about this. A bunch of other big YouTubers talk about this. Like, the goal from the beginning is really build up all that trust, get all of that authentic viewership, and just try to provide as much value as you possibly can so that you have the largest bank of goodwill possible. And then you can start cashing in parts of it. And if you trade in 5% of your goodwill or something, right? If we're putting this at a quantitative metric, that's okay because you have so much of it because you've been doing it for a long time. So that's fortunate with my channel. Almost all my videos are just pure educational, free value, things that you would typically have to pay money to get access to. So when I do some kind of sponsorship or brand deal, the amount of goodwill I'm cashing in is very low because I'm immediately gaining all of it back with the value that I'm providing. But if you just post a promotional video or a promotional tweet or sponsors 3 times in your videos, you're very quickly going to run out of that, and you're going to no longer be able to continue to maintain even the sponsorship rates or levels, right?
Cool. Yeah, that makes so much sense. And I think it's really important for people to understand that from a business perspective, but also from a channel perspective. Like, in the grand scheme of things, like when you have a few thousand subscribers, it's not worth chasing $50 or $100 if that's going to hurt you so bad.
And it's really hard to like conceptualize that. Like, I really can emphasize with people because when you're at that size, like, you're probably doing some job on the side. You're doing a bunch of other things. YouTube isn't like your main thing. You're not making any money from it. And your goal is, I want to be a YouTuber. I want to do this. I want to grow this business. And you just want to make as much money as, or you want to at least hit, what your full-time job is or something. So you start really early taking on all these deals. But you have to just look further into the future and ask yourself, like, in a year, would I accept this type of deal? If I had 100,000 subscribers, would I accept this type of deal? And those are the channels I find that do the best. Like, you look at a channel as 5, 10K subs, but they're acting as if they're like a huge channel, huge authority. They're being responsible. They're not just chasing every dollar. Like, that's what's going to help you grow faster. Yeah. And also, just one small note, it slows you down to do sponsorship deals. Like, the type of videos you're going to do, the type of content you're going to be able to produce, the speed at which you can produce it, it just naturally is going to be reduced, even if it's only by 10, 20%. Because now you're dealing with the whole logistical side. You have billing, you have finance, you have other things on your mind. You're getting approvals from brands. You cannot grow as quickly, I would argue, when you're doing tons of sponsorship deals.
Yeah, the biggest problem that I find in terms of time is once the video editor has finished the video, normally I would approve it and upload it if it's not a sponsored video. But if it's a sponsored video, I need to then send it to the sponsor, can take them a few days to get back to me. And then there might be some improvements. And then I need to get my video editor to fix them. And then I have to send it back to the sponsor sometimes. And that whole process can add another week and a half to the process.
Oh, easily. I've had it where like my lead time is like a month on getting videos out because I just know that there's going to be 3 rounds of revisions because they want a capital here. Like, it's just, some brands can be super picky too, right? So
very, very, yeah. Okay, so we've talked a little bit about sponsorships. I just want to zoom out a little bit because Tim, we had a chat over coffee when you came to Vietnam, and I think we're all in a really fortunate position that we're working online and we can, to a certain extent, we can kind of we can work from almost any country we choose. And that's what we've done. So I'm living in Vietnam. I have done on and off for the last 10 years. Milan, similarly, also living in Vietnam. And Tim, you've just moved from Canada to Dubai. So I think it was a few months ago you was in Saigon and we had a conversation and you traveled to a few different countries for a lot of different reasons. And then you chose Dubai. I'm wondering what that process was like from moving to, like, what the kind of decision process was from moving to Canada to Dubai, because that's quite a big step, right? For many, many different reasons, right? So I just want to kind of walk through your thought process and how that's been so far.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, to be honest with you, the decision, even though it was a little rushed when I made it, because when I met you there, we were talking, like I hadn't decided, and then 2 months later, I'm in Dubai. But I had been thinking about this for a while. I'd seen online this whole concept of like international business or being a nomad or living around the world. And I think when you grow up, at least for me, like being in Canada or being pretty far detached from like a lot of other countries, like people in Canada, US, like they don't really travel too much outside of that general region. You don't even imagine that you can like live somewhere else. Like when I grew up in Canada, up until the point where I was maybe like 20, 21, it never even crossed my mind that I could just move somewhere or I could go to another country. Like that, it just wasn't something I ever considered. And during COVID, especially when, like a lot of freedoms were taken away, it was a lot of lockdown, I started seeing a bunch of people that were in other places and they're like living their life, doing normal stuff. A lot of them are Canadians or like you from UK, right, Mike? And like you're living in Vietnam and all. And so it started to kind of just plant that seed a little bit. And then as soon as COVID was over, I kind of had the travel bug like a lot of other people. I wanted to start traveling around. So I did quite a bit of that last year. And doing that, I just felt so much more alive, just getting out of Canada, being in a new environment, being in a new place, kind of resetting the schedule and the routine. And then I started paying a lot of taxes as well. I mean, this is a huge consideration. Like I can't leave this out of it. Like last year, I paid the most amount of tax I've ever paid in my life. It was like low to mid 6 figures in tax, which is very, very painful, especially when I'm young, I'm healthy, I'm getting no benefit from the healthcare and all the other things in Canada. And you start to see people that are living in Dubai or living in Vietnam or living in these other countries that are just like you, doing the same type of business, living pretty much tax-free, a way better lifestyle, traveling around, doing all of these things. So it kind of started to inspire me and get me thinking about it. So then what happened last year is I went to Dubai, actually met one of my close friends now who lives in Dubai. He was telling me all about how he did that. I met you in Vietnam. I met other people all over. And when I got back after about a 1-month trip from Asia, I'd already been thinking about this quite a bit, but not taking it super seriously. And I started really digging into, okay, how logistically complicated is this, right? It's like move my business from Canada to Dubai. Is this even possible? Is there another country I could go to? And I ended up settling on Dubai just because logistically it was the easiest to figure out. I could do almost all of it remotely and I already knew people that were here. And I was like, you know what? Like, I'm doing this. Like, it was like a 1-day decision pretty much. I, swiped my credit card, bought the UAE business licenses and all that stuff. And then within 1 month, sold everything I owned, sold my house, picked up, got on a flight and went to Dubai. There's still some more things I need to figure out, like tax-wise, that are being dealt with right now by my team. But yeah, I was just like, you know what, this is life, this is living. I want to go somewhere else. I want to experience the world. I want to travel around. Maybe I'll go back to Canada. I can go at any point that I want, but it's freezing cold. It's winter. I live alone. I don't even know that many people here. Like, I'm not leaving that much behind other than family, which fully support my decision.
Amazing. Yeah. So you've sold your house already. So this is like a permanent decision.
Yeah, it was crazy. Like, what happened was I got back and then pretty much I was just like, I want to like experience that high again, right? Of like being in a different place, not just being stuck in this like same like morbid routine is like what it felt like. It's like gray, cloudy, snowy. I sit inside all day. Like, what's the point of being really successful or having this online business or having all these things that I've worked so hard to get if I'm not going to enjoy them and experience life, right? So then the first step was I need to sell everything that I own. Like, I've, even in my 23 years on this planet, I've accumulated so much crap because I always had a house or a big place to put it in.
Yeah.
So I had a 5-bedroom house back in Canada. So I had to sell everything or get rid of it or throw it out. So I spent pretty much every single day for about 2 weeks just on Facebook Marketplace, on eBay, going to the dump, just clearing out this entire house to the point where like I was living on like an air mattress just with my office and my tech equipment. And I was Uber Eatsing like everything to my place. And the reason for that is like I wanted to be in Dubai right away. I didn't want to wait. So I cleared my entire house out. Then I put it on the market. And as soon as it was on the market and I had like wrapped up everything in Canada, I just flew to Dubai and I signed like the sale paper while I was in Dubai. I just had my real estate agent like look after the house and take care of it while I was here. So I'm going back actually in 2 weeks just to close on the house. And then I'm flying back here. So yeah, it was just crazy turn of events, but I was just super pumped, super motivated. I had all the adrenaline. Like, yeah, I'm doing this right now. Like, it's happening as soon as possible.
Very wild ride. That's like, that's like I'm sure Mike went through similar, but I went through something like that. Not in the extent I had to sell everything, or although actually when I left Australia, I had to sell a few cars because I was with someone that I was, and like we had to go through all of this, and it was like it's such a wild thing to do, and then you arrive with like 80 kilos of check-in luggage, and that's all you can do, and that's now you live in a new house that fills up, and so so is Dubai gonna be like you think you're gonna move to another country as well, or Dubai is for now like a settle point?
I think at least for the next like few years, Dubai is where I'll settle. Like I want to build a little bit of a life here. Maybe not like purchase assets or like really lock myself into much. Like one of the mistakes I kind of have is purchasing a house too early back in Canada. I financially could do it no problem, but it does really tie you down, especially with the possessions and just like land ownership is a huge liability that like a lot of people don't talk about. Taxes. I just had like a pipe burst in my ceiling. It cost me $3,000. I'm not even $8 Canada that had to get fixed, right? So,
oh wow,
in Dubai, yeah, I plan on being here for a little bit, but I do plan to travel quite a bit while I'm here. Like the idea of being in Dubai is that it's very central, like in the world. I can keep a place in Dubai. I can store my stuff here, keep it really light. Like I'm intentionally trying not to buy like a bunch of stuff like what I did in Canada. And then in the summers when it's stupid hot here and it gets like 40, 50 degrees, I'll go travel around, try some other countries, maybe go back to Canada for a month or two. And then when I'm a bit older, a bit more mature, decide like more permanently where I would want to live. Like I like the idea of Singapore. I like Thailand. I like Vietnam. Like I like those more Asian countries so far that I've been to. But logistically, they're a bit more complicated to go to. And the tax situation is not as simple as something like Dubai. So this was the easiest like next step as opposed to like, yeah, I'm going to go move to like, Laos or some random Asian country.
Yeah, so Tim, thanks so much for joining us on the podcast. Where can our audience find you if they want to find out more?
Yeah, literally just go on Google and search Tech with Tim. You find GitHub, LinkedIn, YouTube, Twitter, Instagram, whatever. Any social you can imagine is just under Tech with Tim. Main one though is YouTube. And thanks guys for having me. It was super fun to catch up and chat again.